Interview subjects sit in front of a black background, text on screen. In 2013, there were over 200 serious injuries and 2 deaths associated with logging in Washington state. Travis Nailin, logging consultation supervisor.
Yeah, so I've been here for about 4 years, and when I started at consultation, I took over a job for a guy who retired, and when I was going through his stuff one day, I found these trifold poster papers. I opened them up, and artwork was in there.
Text on screen. Over 30 illustrations were discovered depicting logging incidents. Etta Keller, administrative assistant.
And he says, I came across these pieces of art and I'm not quite sure what they are. And I said, well, bring them to me, let me see what you have.
The dates on them, were back in the early 60s, so I thought, that's kind of neat. So I put them aside, and I was talking with Etta, and Keller, she works upstairs by me now. I thought I'd bring them up to her and see what she thought we could do with them.
They were signed, originally commissioned pieces from the department from 1966 and 1968 Governor's Conference. And so I recognized Johnny's signature.
Text on screen. In 1965, LNI hired a graphic artist with previous experience working as an animator for Walt Disney Productions. Johnny Mildenberger continued to work for LNI for 27 years.
As soon as she saw him, she actually recognized the guy's name and knew we were on something, and she knew that he had worked for Disney before and really knew that we had to keep him, and important artwork for LNI, historical value.
I thought, well, these have got to be preserved. So I went over and I showed them to our assistant director, and she said, oh yeah, I used to know Johnny. He worked here for 27 years, and there are still some people here that work here that know him and knew him, and so when we got together in the rotunda, it was kind of old home week.
An illustration depicts a logger holding a chain standing next to a logging truck with a log falling from the trailer over the logger's head. Text on screen. Almost 50 years later, a whole new audience is being introduced to Johnny's artwork.
Just what he was able to do, take what the compliance officers would write down on paper, he actually took and made those paintings out of. And they actually told the story of the fatalities, able to share them with people. And use some of what we do today is actually able to tell a story of how injuries and fatalities happen and try to prevent them.
It really tells a story, but he did a lot of the posters and the artwork that they used probably for outreach events at that time. 2
illustrations are shown. The first depicts a logger swinging a hammer at a wedge in a tree that has been undercut with a chainsaw. The next illustration shows the tree falling back and hitting the logger, knocking him down.
The logging fatalities that he drew, I could look at, within the last 3 years and find fatalities happen exactly the same way.
2 illustrations are shown. The first depicts a logging truck on a road on a steep hillside. A log has rolled down the hillside and is impacting the cab of the truck where the driver is sitting, shattering the windshield and buckling the roof of the truck. The second illustration shows loggers running down a hill away from loose chunks of logs. 2 of the 3 loggers have been struck by large flying chunks of logs.
We have write-ups. Sharp does them now. They're a lot different than he did, but they have little hazard analysis that they put out, and it's unfortunate that over that many years still the same things are happening.
Text on screen. In 2012, LNI partnered with private industry to improve safety in logging.
It's the Logging Safety Initiative. It's been something that they implemented a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago.
The industry, they're probably 20 years behind the time in safety.
Video depicts a logger wearing an orange safety vest and an orange hard hat walking next to a large piece of machinery on a logging worksite with logs and other debris on the ground. The logger approaches a pile of logs and removes cables that are wrapped around the logs.
And their industrial insurance rates right now are over $20 per hour. We created new safety programs for them, lots of new requirements that are above today's standards, just to try to increase the safety in the logging industry and actually, at the same time, bring the industrial insurance down, but just increasing safety and severity of injuries.
Johnny Mildenberger stands in front of an exhibit of his logging safety illustrations at the LNI headquarters building in Tumwater, Washington. Text on screen. 50 years later, LNI remains committed to ensuring that every worker comes home safely at the end of the day.
I'm Johnny Mildenberger, and I worked for the safety education section and did the illustrations. So it's mind-boggling. I was surprised they found all this stuff because I kind of, somebody asked me not too long ago what happened to all this stuff, because something that came up, and I thought, I don't know what happened to it. Must be thrown out.
Text on screen: thank you, Johnny, for 27 years of service keeping Washington safe and working. Washington State Department of Labor and Industries.